Last year, in the aftermath of the October 7th Hamas terror attacks on Israel, myself and other Jewish students found ourselves frightened, confused, and alone. Caught in a flurry of anti-Semitic and anti-Zionist rhetoric, we were simultaneously united in our support of Israel and other Jewish students, but divided over how we should express our beliefs for fear of backlash. It seemed that our school administrators, the very people who are tasked with ensuring our well-being at school, were just as perplexed as we were. Nearly a week after October 7th, my principal released a statement that neither condemned Hamas's attack nor offered support for Jewish students. Rabbi Hyatt described the statement as the longest version of saying nothing. My Jewish peers and I agreed. It was too little, too late. But when God calls upon Jonah to warn the city of Nineveh, Jonah flees on a ship to Tarshish. But the ship was caught in a great storm. As the rest of the ship's crew panicked, Jonah went to sleep. Myself and other Jewish students felt as though our school administration was also asleep, unaware and unwilling to offer their support. We felt abandoned. How could it be that the people at the highest level of school leadership weren't taking action? Just as Jonah, during his 3 days and 3 nights in the belly of the fish, had to decide whether or not he would heed God's calls to action, I too was swallowed up by a dilemma of whether or not to speak up. In this moment of great uncertainty, when I had no idea if the support of the school staff was behind me, I found purpose. With the help of Temple Emanuel clergy, I wrote a letter that respectfully addressed my school's inadequate statement about the conflict, and I offered my insight into how to construct a more appropriate statement. I printed the letter, signed it, and hand-delivered it to my principal. I explained that I would appreciate the opportunity to have a conversation about how school leadership could better support Jewish students. I never received a response. I thought it was quite reasonable to request support for myself and other Jews in a time of great sorrow, but once again, our school's leadership failed to act. In my letter, I warned of the dangers of anti-Semitic sentiments and how they are often a harbinger for the proliferation of other hateful ideas. I explained the historical significance of the October 7th attacks, and of course, I made it clear how very disappointed I was in their failure to stand with Jewish teens. But my request for help, along with the rest of my letter, was disregarded. How could it be that I looked my principal in the eye and asked for help and was ignored? When Jonah was still in the belly of the fish, but had already decided to fulfill his prophetic obligation, he cried out to God and begged for liberation. He teaches that they who cling to empty folly forsake their own welfare. In context, I interpret this to mean that it's not worth dwelling on what you can't change. So I turned to places where I was met with ears that were willing to listen. This trend of finding comfort in taking action continued through the rest of this year. Other Jewish teens found community and purpose this way too. This February, myself and a group of other Temple Emanuel teens traveled to Washington, D.C. to attend the Letakain Social Justice Seminar, where we lobbied for legislation to continue sending aid to Israel and also to send humanitarian aid to civilians in the Gaza Strip. Knowing that other members of my community and I were making a difference made navigating the post-October 7th world just a little easier.
Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom.
My name is Henry Malek, and this June, I had the incredible opportunity to go on the Joyce F. Israel Study Tour. It was one of the most incredible experiences of my life, and most of that is because I was in Israel for that month. But even before I went, everybody was telling me, "You're crazy for going to Israel at this time." Everybody was telling my parents, I'm stepping down a little bit. Everybody was telling my parents, you're crazy for sending your kid into what seems to be an active war zone. But then I was reading the story of Jonah, and I saw a verse that reminded me of this. Jonah says, heave me overboard into the storm, and the storm will calm for you. Well, I guess I felt a little heaved overboard into the storm. And I was honestly scared. I did not know what was going to happen, and no one else did. But for that 3 weeks that we were in Israel, we all felt incredibly safe, and it felt incredibly calm. So what this reminded me of is the action we need to take. While we do need to take action here, we also need to take action over there. We can't avoid our people, our land, and what needs to be done needs to happen over there. I wanted to make that short and sweet. That's all I have.